What is up, Guardians? It's Mekabre, and we're back with yet another Destiny 2 video. Now, in today's video, we are a little less than a week away from the 30th anniversary pack coming out, and that means a lot of new stuff, a lot of new content, a whole 6-man activity that's free for all players, and a brand new dungeon. Now, I do plan on attempting this dungeon day one, however, probably not going to be in the race for completing it because it just doesn't work out that my teammates are online at that time. However, I do, like I said, plan on doing it day one, so I wanted to cover some loadouts that I am considering using for the dungeon. Now, here's the deal. At the time of recording this, I have no clue if any information was added in the TWAB. I also have absolutely no clue what is in the dungeon itself. So if you want to see a dungeon guide, let me know in the comment section down below, and I will put one together as soon as it comes out and I have the time to do so. But in the meantime, here are some loadouts that I think are going to be quite good in this new dungeon. For starters, this is my first and honestly one of my favorite loadouts at the current moment, and this is if I am going for a Stasis Warlock build. Yes, now these will all be Warlock builds. I just made Warlock, so I do apologize. But as you can clearly see, we are using Peace Bond. One with Headstone specifically, otherwise not worth it, but this is very good. We're pairing that with Mantle of Battle Harmony, as it is actually insane with anything stasis related. An easy substitute for this would be Ager's Scepter. However, everything else would have to change if that was the case. I am rocking Cartesian with Sleeper Simulant, as Sleeper Simulant is getting a good buff in this upcoming update, and honestly, it's a workhorse. This entire loadout has one ad clear, one high major type boss dealing damage weapon being Cartesian coordinate, and then one physical boss, the only boss of the dungeon dealing weapon. Now this is only going to work if the boss is not directly on top of us, as Sleeper Simulant would be no good in that scenario. And this build really just utilizes my stasis turrets. If you're curious, here are the fragments and here are my aspects. If you want to look, most of these mods will not be changing in between. This is the first of many loadouts that I have considered using, but this is by far a favorite and reliable one at that. Now, this is the second of many builds that I'm considering using, but this one is a little more simple in the fact that Wither Horde being god tier as it is, and a decent auto rifle of any sort will work. I just happened to choose a Vorpal one. Pairing these two together is a deadly combo. We are also using Phoenix Protocol and Well, as that is going to give us a little bit of survivability and will increase our damage where we see fit, but really, just allowing us to survive is the main point of this build. Now, as you see, I have switched to a rocket launcher. I happened to get a decent hothead, so that is what I would be using in this scenario. However, if rocket launchers are not the move, which is very well possible, it is easily switched out for something like Threaded Needle or perhaps a Reed's Regret. Any of those would work. The mods are more or less the same, as most of my build is the same. This is the third of many builds, but this one is going to utilize one thing that could be incorporated to several other of the builds, and that is an ignition code specifically with blinding nades. Now, the reason blinding nades are busted is they blind enemies for around 5 to 6 seconds and are insane. Now, ignition code is something that is just a must-have. You need to get one if you don't have one with blinding nades, and I highly recommend using it anytime you feel free. This build does not utilize any fusions, so that would be under the assumption that fusion rifles are not the play, and something else damage-wise is well worth your money. In this case, I'm assuming that a rocket launcher would. Once again, if not, I can swap it out with Threaded Needle quite easily, but if it is a close-range fight, and perhaps it would be, Falling Guillotine may be the way to go. Trinity Ghoul paired with Battle of Mantle Harmony and Middle Tree Stormcaller is what I am choosing for subclasses, as this is an insane ad-clear beast. This is the third loadout I am considering rocking. Now we are on to the fourth and final loadout that I am considering rocking. In this loadout, we have a couple of things that I think are a little unique. Once again, we are rocking Blinding Nades, this time in our energy slot with O-Rings Maul. But we're rocking a Fatebringer in the primary slot, specifically one with Firefly, as that is going to assist with Ad Clear the best. We are back on well, as that is going to offer some survivability, and we're pairing it with Sleeper Simulant, guessing that boss DPS is just a must with Sleeper. This build really is kind of the best of the best. It's a workhorse, we know it works well, and if we don't enjoy the blinding nades, it is an easy swap to Cartesian coordinate. This is the fourth and final build that I will be showing you, but do not worry, there's a couple more tips and tricks I have if you stick around. So you decided to stick around. Here's a couple other tips and tricks that I highly recommend taking advantage of as you go into this dungeon day one or any day thereafter. Blinding grenades are a must. Pick one up, as such ignition code is very, very good and easy to farm. However, if you do not have an energy one, I highly encourage you go into the strike playlist and try and find an empty vessel with one. Both are very good options, and both are ones that you can use in just about any activity and absolutely break the activity. So pick one up. Next up, use the season mods. I know it gets boring using nothing but fusion and linear fusion rifles, but please just do it. Cartesian coordinate, along with any of the linear fusion rifles such as Threaded Needle, Reed's Regret, or perhaps Sleeper Simulant. If you are lucky enough and have 1k, use that. These weapons are going to output a large amount of damage and are going to make any boss DPS that is required that much easier. However, might not be the play depending on how close the enemy is. Keep in mind, Cartesian coordinate works in almost any range as long as you're not too far away, that is. So if it is a close range fight and you don't want to use swords, fusion rifles, regular fusion rifles, will work just as well. This third tip that I have, I think third tip, I'm pretty sure we're on the third tip. Anyway, make sure one person on your group of 3 has Divinity. I don't know if Divinity will even come into play in this scenario, but Divinity is a very good weapon, and if one person on your team can run it, that is going to increase the damage output of both other team members. The problem with running Div with a group of 3 is that that person is no longer putting out a large amount of damage, and the other two's increase is not necessarily enough to cancel it out. It definitely depends on the weapons that your teammates have. For example, if I'm using Divinity and 2 other people, let's say, have 1k, it is well worth your time. If only one other person has 1k, Divinity is probably not worth it. Don't use it. The fourth tip I have is make sure at least one Warlock in your group is running Stasis. Now, here's the thing. Stasis is very good. Stasis turrets are one of the best in the game right now, especially in high-end PvE content. I highly recommend one person rocking these. If you have no Warlocks in your group, or you only have one, make sure they are running well, because well is going to allow for some survivability. And instead, if there's a Hunter, allow them to rock Stasis. There's also a seasonal mod that gives additional damage to any light subclass damage, as long as that enemy is affected by stasis. So your stasis grenades work. Put on a dusk field and use it. Now, as I just covered a lot of those tips really quick, just one more thing, and that is protective light. Now, this in tandem with taking charge is one of the best best combo of mods you can put on your armor. So slot those, make sure you're rocking them, especially day one if contest mode is active, as that will allow you to survive a lot more than you should. That is it for the short tips, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, sub, comment down below, especially if you want a guide on this dungeon as soon as I can get around to it, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Get back to grinding, you crazy guardians.